In terms of branding, we know that conventionally branding was taken as creating value for customers, delivering value to customers, and communicating value with customers. So in this new digital age, to your opinion, what has been substantially changed?
For me, the changes have operated in the three different levels. If we think of digital as a factor of influence in the product development, creating value, we see now that we integrate the consumer in the product development process itself. We were never able to do that before. And I've had examples of, and I asked my marketing teams today to be checking regularly what are consumers talking about on the net, what are they interested about, because that gives us a lot of clues and a lot of insights. And obviously I ask them to check all the reviews. And some companies have even gone as far as asking consumers to take over the product development. Then in the delivery, it's clear that we are now in an era where online shopping has become the fastest growing element in all retail. People are not only using digital to shop for travel or for holidays or not only for very functional categories, but in the beauty world we see it as well. Even in the luxury cosmetic segment, it is the fastest growing channel today. So it gives more accessibility for the products. And then the last bit I would say is in terms of communication, it's changed completely the rules of the game as well. When I did marketing 20 years ago, I had very, very clear KPIs and I knew exactly how to reach my target. I knew what I could expect from TV, I knew what I could expect from print. Today, there are certain targets that you cannot reach without digital. And we've gone so far that in a country like Taiwan, that is at the foremost of digitalization compared to what I've seen in Europe before, digital has now become the main media channel for us. So all of that is quite structured now and is part of our daily life. And the beauty of digital marketing compared to the kind of marketing that I knew when I started is that you can measure almost everything. So the data mining element is extremely important. CRM strategies are becoming more and more relevant, and probably compared to what I used to know in the past, there's a notion that has changed also the game, which is the lifetime value of consumers. Some things, the cost of reaching consumers has decreased tremendously, and also the perspective of having a relationship that goes beyond one transaction, that really has a meaning in the life of the consumer, has gained completely different relevance.
There are many local brands, and they may or may not have sensed the opportunities and also challenges brought forth by the digital waves. And in the meantime, they don't have that many resources as global brands like L'Oreal manage. So do you have any suggestion for managers with such local brands with relatively scarce resources, how to face those opportunities and challenges?
Well, first of all, the Taiwanese market is extremely competitive because not only you find international brands present, but indeed local brands are also very strong. And as a matter of fact, in many areas, the local brands are more successful. If you take our classical retail, where we operate, local drugstore chains are enjoying fantastic growth, even faster than most international drugstores. And in the food channel supermarkets, it's exactly the same. It tends to be local retailers who strike the right chord of what is the taste of Taiwanese consumers and what do Taiwanese shoppers really want. I would say, as for everything, it's very often a matter of common sense. You can use a lot of information available on the net that was not available before at no cost. As I say, it's if you develop the right attitude and have a very strong focus on analyzing the consumer journey, then you can, even as a small company, you can find clues to the ways to follow.
You just mentioned the term consumer journey or customer journey, and this is a term that may be a little bit foreign to some managers in Taiwan. So could you elaborate a little bit more on the term consumer journey?
Compared to the way decisions were made before, what we now have is a process that is full of iterations, full of almost trial and go and try and stop and back to the same point. We used to think that we had a product innovation and that that product innovation was the main driver for the shopping act. So it was a very transactional type of model. Today, as I say, consumers are able to browse, look for information before they even go to the store. They make a very documented choice. They decide then to purchase, and after purchasing, they share also their opinion on how good the product was or how bad it was. So they become advocates of the brand, and that feeds again back the whole process for them and for new consumers who will take into account what other consumers say. And if there is one word that is very important in the digital area, is viral. Viral describes pretty much the difference between a successful campaign and a campaign that is okay but not so great. Is the ability to infect as many people as possible with the values of your brand and the ability for that to travel across the web.
Since we are talking about digital branding, digital marketing, and do you think that it is possible to communicate quality of a brand of some products through digital channels, or do you have any story to share with us?
Definitely. I think the time where e-commerce was just a site where people clicked on a product with the price without any further information is finished. Today, there is definitely a way to create a virtual shopping experience that conveys the values of the brand. On top of that, there is one thing that is extremely important for consumers, is consumers are really interested in brands that have something to say. So they look for sincerity. And I think one of the advantages of digital marketing is that everyone needs to do sincere marketing. If you don't do sincere marketing, consumers find out and it bites you back. So it's a very clean process. Yes, you can definitely create the right environment. It's what we do with our branded sites, because we know a lot of consumers, for example, are afraid of not having the original product. So they want to have the security net or the safety that when they are purchasing a product online, they're getting the real stuff from the real manufacturer, that there hasn't been anything interfering in between. So I think more and more we will see that also to succeed digitally, brands will have to create an environment that gives the possibility to compare, that gives more advice, that explains more what the product is about, and not just in a functional way. I think the time where people bought a product because it fulfilled a certain function is also less and less relevant. Today it's more about how is this part of the life of the consumer. And it's a very difficult balance to strike between being present and explaining what you're about, and also not being overbearing. That's also something that people don't want to be stalked by brands sending messages that are just too obvious to be true. So it's important that we always keep that balance. In business, people like to measure a lot of things with hard facts. So indeed, everyone wants to be able to put a figure. What is the return on investment in terms of sales, in terms of clicks? What we've discovered in a painful way with trial and error is that very often those measures are the wrong measures. I think the time where digital was measured by clicks is also gone. I know a lot of companies are still following that type of KPIs, but it's really not the way we follow the efficacy of our campaigns. So there are certain rules that we try to establish internally. There is a big danger in the internet is through the amount of possibilities that you have, there is a huge fragmentation. So there is the risk of doing things that might not be seen or might not be relevant. At the same time, the better understanding we have on consumers, the more targeted we can be, and there's no way to reach consumers that is more efficient than digital in that way. So the two rules of thumb that I give my teams is first to do everything they can to understand the consumer, and not just the consumer as a shopper or not just the consumer interacting with one product, but the consumer behavior in general as a person. And the second is to think long term as well. It's very difficult to put hard facts behind, as you say, we organized an event in a store like we did with Lancôme in the campaign I was describing earlier on. We have to be clear about the objective. And the objective is not always sales. The objective can be advocacy, the objective can be awareness, the objective can be to educate. There are different, you use the media in different ways, and if you don't have clarity about what you want to do before you start, then of course it's going to be difficult. The only brand that we have today in-house in Taiwan using Line is Lancôme. A lot of people thought that Line was a social network. It's not at all. We are present with Facebook, we're present on many social platforms with many other brands. line is much more transactional. And we saw competitors pushing for the biggest or the largest amount of fans possible. It's not at all what we try to do. We really try to reach only the people who are interested in the brand. So some competitors were able to create a base of consumers that was 10 times bigger. So they reached 3-4 million people doing things, for example, like offering stickers. At the end of the day, I'm not interested in people who go on my site because they want a sticker. I'm interested in people who are really interested in the brand. And on top of that, the beauty of that system in internet is that the more people you have, the more you have to pay for the transactions. So you have to be careful at the same time that you're not investing just to have coverage and doing very little to build a brand. The other thing that is very important is when you enter that type of relationship, particularly in the digital world, you cannot say, I'm going to try it for 3 months and then afterwards realize it's not working and then say, you know what, I'm going to stop communicating. You can't. So when you engage in that type of dialogue, you have to have a commitment of doing that long term, which means you need to have the resources internally, you need to have people who are able to carry that. There's nothing worse than starting a campaign like that and 6 months later saying having an outdated site or having outdated comments. So that's also why there is a lot of pressure internally for everyone to use digital in every possible way, and I make sure that we do it step by step, that only when the brand is ready to have a long-term commitment we engage into it. It's frustrating for some people, but it's the only way we can make sure that we do not disappoint our consumers.
So in that direction, at the end of the day, branding in the digital world is not only about getting attention. People are talking about attention economy, but it's also about trust, also about relevance, and also about relationship.